One of my viewers asked me if I would watch this video. It's called Why the Netherlands Refuses to Get Stupid Rich. So interesting title for a video. From what I've watched about the Dutch economy, companies like ASML, it looks like the Netherlands is in a very strong position economically. It seems like it's a very rich country already. So interested to know why or how they could get stupid rich. Tell me what you think about this video, and yeah, keep recommending more videos about the Netherlands.
The Netherlands, the 1950s. World War II had left the country in ruins and the reconstruction was costly. The Dutch were fighting a war in Indonesia and people were working hard for little pay. But the Dutch were about to become unimaginably wealthy. In their northern provinces, teams of Dutch and American explorers were looking for oil, but all that they could find was gas. They had made several discoveries before realizing that all these wells were connected. They were standing on one giant gas field, at that time the largest in the world.
At that time the largest in the world. Actually, before I started this channel, I knew nothing of this. And I seen it kind of mentioned in a previous video, so really good to know that we're going to explore that a little bit more. Just when it talks about the damage and destruction caused in World War II, when you think about the Netherlands' current position and how it's grown since then, it's such an amazing example of a well-managed country. Being from the UK, I'm extremely envious of how well-managed the Netherlands is. I wish we could take some inspiration from the Netherlands. But yeah, let's learn more about this.
I've done videos already about the massive land reclamation projects of the Netherlands and the Delta works, which protect the country from flooding. But one of the reasons why they could afford such projects was because of this discovery in the late 1950s. It opened a door of opportunities, and today there are still hundreds of billions of cubic meters of extractable gas in the ground. But the Dutch made the controversial decision to keep this in the ground, despite the supply difficulties that Europe is currently facing. And the reason why might surprise you. This is the closure of the Groningen Gas Field. With hindsight.
I mean, again, like very interesting start to the video. So they closed these gas fields down. I guess we're going to find out about why that happened, but tell me your opinion on that. Do you think that's a good thing, a bad thing? Do you ever see it changing?
So I love making these videos and I hope to one day make it my full-time job. With every video that I make, I try to improve a little bit on it. So one of the things I'm doing is I share the script of each video, and all of these have all the sources included in them. And I'm constantly working on identifying my biases and logical fallacies. But I want to give you an opportunity as well to show your support. And that's why I created a Patreon page. I created 3 different tiers, beginning at $2 per month. But if you have a little bit more to spare, that would of course be great. This would help me spend more time on perfecting these videos and to keep the upload schedule consistent. I will also be using this Patreon page to ask for your advice and for your feedback, and I'll make sure to answer to each of your comments. If you're a video editor, I'm also sharing downloadable presets that we use to create our videos. The first one I shared is a simple drag and drop preset to add depth of field to GeoLayer's map animations. So if you want to support me and you have something to share, check out our Patreon page. And now, back to the video.
Go subscribe to his Patreon.
The Dutch are amongst the happiest people on earth. They are one of the richest, most equal, and the Dutch welfare state is one of the most generous of any European country. This prosperity is rooted far back in history, but during the second half of the 20th century, the Groningen Gas Field played a significant role. The first gas was found near Koevoorden in the late 1940s, and other fields were discovered in the mid-1950s. It was always known that there was gas in the northern provinces, but what everybody was hoping to find was oil. The Dutch had found some oil near Schonebeek and established the NAM, a joint venture between Shell and ExxonMobil, to explore the area for larger fields. But after searching for nearly 2 decades, they only found some small natural gas fields. The turning point came with a discovery near Delfzijl. They found gas and sent tests to their control room near Sappemeer. Here, they made the astounding discovery that this gas had the exact same properties as two other discoveries that were found tens of kilometers apart. This meant that it was all part of the same gas field, which at that time was the largest natural gas field in the world. This discovery was a game changer. Within a few years, the Dutch laid thousands of kilometers of pipes connecting virtually every house in the country to this field, and the benefits were instantly obvious. Most houses were still heated using coal, which required manual labor, which came with health risks, and which was a significantly more polluting fossil fuel. The Dutch government expected that gas wouldn't last very long and would soon be outcompeted by nuclear energy. This reasoning motivated their policy to extract as much as they could, leading to an exponential increase of production, and almost overnight adding billions of dollars of revenue to the Dutch treasury. In the first years, 70% of all revenue went to the Dutch state, but in the 1970s, this was first raised to 85% and later to 95%. But all this sudden extra cash began showing a flip side. Here's the problem. The revenues from natural gas strengthened the Dutch guilder, and for other sectors this meant that their exports now became more expensive and were less competitive. This phenomenon is now called Dutch disease, the increase in the development of one sector leading to the decline of other sectors. In 1970, unemployment was just 1%, but only 10 years later this had risen to 12%, well above the average of Northern European countries. It seemed like nuclear energy was not taking off after all, and there was a global energy crisis. Because of all these reasons, the Dutch lowered production to a more sustainable level. And now they could start thinking about how to invest their billions.
So even making a decision like that is such good forward thinking, just a very intelligent decision, whereas some other countries might have just kept trying to extract as much as they can and try and just monetize that and cash in on it. The Netherlands and their leaders obviously could see long term that it was going to have a negative effect on other parts of the economy and other industries. So yeah, they reduced that extraction. So very, very clever to actually to make that movement there.
I've done a video about Norway and showed how they invested most of their oil revenue into a sovereign wealth fund, which is now worth $1.6 trillion. But the Dutch decided to go in a different direction. They passed extensive reforms to their welfare system and guaranteed child allowances, social assistance, and benefits for the sick and disabled. They created the second most generous welfare system in the world, only after Sweden. And much of this was financed by their abundant revenues from natural gas. Other notable investments were made in infrastructure projects, like some of the later works of the Delta Works. In 1992, unemployment had gone down to 8%, and they managed to bring this further down to 2% in 2001. The Dutch had made an epic comeback, and the future of Dutch gas began to look rosy again. This gas is extracted from sandstone that lies 3 kilometers below the surface. But after nearly 3 decades of extraction, this rock started to cave, and this caused earthquakes. In 1991,
I never knew Netherlands had earthquakes, and an interesting reason that was kind of man-made in a way. The man-made is the cause by doing this extraction.
The first earthquake was measured with a strength of 2.4 on the Richter scale.
Tell me if you ever lived through an earthquake in the Netherlands. What was it like?
On top of this field are somewhat 250,000 houses, and the landscape is characterized by monumental farms that are sometimes centuries old. That first earthquake, as it turned out, was just the start. With every year that passed, they became stronger and more frequent, and by 2013 there were over 100 earthquakes per year.
Whoa.
But it was a particularly strong one near Huizinge that changed public discourse. It measured 3.6 on the scale of Richter, the strongest ever recorded. And it happened right when the government released a report warning for more and stronger earthquakes. This resulted in a loud public backlash. The damage to buildings was now rampant. The NAM and the Dutch state had received billions in revenue, while the internet was full of stories of families who had lost their entire life savings to damages without receiving fair compensation. 1 in 10 homeowners felt unsafe, and the added stress led to health problems. The extraction of natural gas also led to land subsidence. In 2018, the land had fallen at its deepest point with 37 centimeters or 15 inches, and this process is still ongoing.
Whoa.
It's controversial to what extent this subsidence is contributing to damages in the area, but it added to an already long list of grievances about the extraction of gas. The government in 2014 decided to gradually phase out production on this field, but this was not without consequences. 50% of all the natural gas that's produced in the EU comes from Groningen, and 2/3 is extracted from this field. But in 2016, after another series of strong earthquakes, the government decided to lower the production yet again. Despite this, in 2018, the province was hit with the strongest earthquake in 5 years, and this was the last straw. Over 100,000 houses were damaged, which is more than a third, and there were a total of 1 million different claims. Ever since that strong earthquake in 2012, the Dutch parliament has debated nearly every month about compensating the damages of natural gas extraction, and that continues to this day.
Yeah, tell me how is that going at the moment? Do you agree? I think it's pretty fair that they should be compensated. Have any of them been compensated? Is it something that's like ongoing at the moment? Like with this, like it just seems so mad to me. Like I don't know if that's like a normal thing when countries are extracting gas that it causes earthquakes. I've never heard of that before. Seems quite mad you can actually cause earthquakes by doing so. And so many of them as well. Obviously increasing in intensity. Yeah, tell me if you're from the Netherlands, is this like a huge news story there?
But what makes the situation so harrowing is that this region is already one of the most economically challenged in the country. Groningen is the poorest Dutch province, while in 2018 it was falsely listed as one of the richest regions in Northern Europe, even ranking above Vienna, Bayern, and Stockholm, because they included natural resources as part of the region's GDP. But this industry enriched not the region, but the Dutch state and the large oil companies, turning it increasingly emotional. In the words of the state secretary, there are plenty of reasons to close gas extraction. Some find them emotional. I find them rational. Groningen gas cannot be extracted safely, but this has been denied for years and has led to, among other things, a huge breach of trust. We close because earthquakes make people sick and destroy communities. The industry undoubtedly has also contributed positively to the region, especially in the early years, and has been a major contributor to the success of the Netherlands in the late 20th century. But that's now over. The Netherlands could get stupidly rich by extracting this gas, especially now that supplies are limited. Some 450 billion cubic meters remain in the ground, which some estimate to be worth $1 trillion. But yet, in 2024, the Netherlands entered its first winter without Groningen gas. Little over half the gas they consumed was imported LNG. The rest was imported from Norway or was produced elsewhere in the Netherlands, and this was a tough decision to make. The Dutch are now working towards becoming completely free of carbon heating by 2050, and this transition will become much more challenging than the last. When they transitioned from coal to gas, the benefits were obvious. Gas was easier and cleaner, and it happened during a time of strong social cohesion. Whereas today, the benefits of transitioning from gas to electricity are less obvious, and people are much more critical on the government and less likely to follow their advice. The field is still not entirely closed, and the Dutch government wants to keep it as a backup in case of extreme shortages, cold winters, or when political circumstances force them to resume extraction. Meanwhile, earthquakes are expected to continue, and thousands of homeowners are still waiting for compensation. But we're living through a historic turning point in Dutch history. This field contributed significantly to shaping the political and physical landscape of the Netherlands. And whether you applaud the decision to prioritize human well-being over capitalist gain, or whether you think the solution lies in capitalizing this resource to invest in a noble cause, it cannot be denied that the field's closure is the end of an era. I've made
Yeah, very interesting, yeah, because I had no idea really about that story in depth. As I said, I seen it mentioned on a previous video, the Dutch disease as well. So to get a deeper understanding, it's very, very interesting. I think at the end of the day, it says here the Netherlands refuses to get stupid rich, but I feel like there's no real choice. You can't put so many people's lives in danger, their homes, their livelihoods. It's just unfortunate where that gas is actually located. I don't know if they could do anything to try and like reinforce the ground or move the town or something. I guess that's probably too big, or move everybody out of that region and try and do it safely. But at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like that's possible, and it's just better to like care about the people. And yeah, with the world moving towards more renewable energy sources, with Dutch engineering and innovation, I'm sure like the Dutch can become leaders in that, whether it's like wind farms. I don't know, is Netherlands investing in like wind farms and things like that? But I guess, as I said, with the ingenuity that the Dutch has shown throughout history, I'm sure they'll have no problems moving to more renewable energy sources and being successful with that. But very interesting documentary, very well produced. Go subscribe to their channel, subscribe to their Patreon, and yeah, tell me what you think about this story. Thanks.